I've been playing around a lot with the Prismatic subclass on Warlock lately, been cranking out lots of raid runs on Salvation's Edge and workshopping combos, and I decided to full send on the new exotic Warlock chestpiece, the Mataiodoxia, which is all about creating suspending explosions of strand energy. After lots, and I do mean lots of different iterations with this build, this is what I landed on. It can stun all champions, you can sever large targets to keep their damage output down while you deal with them, but what it really does incredibly well is it locks rooms the frick down. I mean total lockdown of an area, make it a no-fly zone, and part of that is also having insane ability uptime. So in today's video, I'm going to break this thing down for you. And this is primarily a PvE build, but I'll also show you a bit of what it can do in PvP as well. So let's get into it. There are a lot of moving parts to this build, so just know that I will most definitely include a dim link in the description so you can pull it up and modify it to your liking or straight up copy it if that's what you want to do. Does not matter to me. Alright, before I start breaking down each individual component of the build, let me first unpack the basic philosophy here. So there are a lot of encounters in this raid and in the Pale Heart activities in general where you have to complete a clear task. There's a clear task that you have to perform, but it's in a small space, whether it's pinging plates to create resonance at the exact second that you need to, or maybe it's collecting and distributing shapes in a small room with thralls and Zubats and ogres and knights all beaming you. There are just a lot of times when you need to tell everyone in the room to chill the heck out and let you breathe a little bit. So this build accomplishes three primary functions. First, it keeps elemental debuffs on enemies in a wide radius at all times. Second, it keeps your health topped off consistently to provide you with survivability and the capacity to continue to go about your task without breaking to go get health in cover. And third, it is cyclical in so much as all of your actions recharge your other actions, so your loop continues to feed itself. Ultimately, we're going to be suspending lots of enemies, creating tangles that do big AoE damage, slowing enemies passively, regenerating our health whenever an enemy dies to an arcane needle or a tangle explosion, and the constant mix of light and dark final blows will feed our transcendence quickly, allowing you to have more uptime for when you need to dump big damage on a boss with increased weapon damage, or have your area denial transcendent grenades in a pinch. So there are a ton of moving parts to this build, so let's walk through them right now. The very first thing we got to talk about is obviously the exotic armor piece that this all revolves around. This is the new Warlock exotic called the Mataiodoxia. If you think I'm pronouncing that wrong, just know that my degree is in biblical languages, which includes Greek. The exotic perk on it is called Stylostyxis, and it reads, targets damaged by arcane needle emit a suspending detonation when defeated, and landing multiple arcane needles on the same target immediately triggers a larger and more powerful detonation. Defeating suspended targets grants melee energy. Your arcane needles are strong against barrier champions. So that's a pretty impressive list of benefits. Let's talk about the suspending blast. There are three ways to activate the suspending blast with the Mataiodoxia. The first and easiest way is to simply get a final blow with the arcane needle. So picking a red bar out of the crowd and tossing it at him will kill him immediately and then suspend everything nearby while also creating a tangle that you can then detonate to do big damage in an AoE to everything that's suspended. And remember, by the way, that killing suspended targets grants you melee energy, so you can basically get that needle charge right back. The second way to do suspending detonations is to tag an enemy with the needle and then finish them off while they are marked. That will make them blow up and suspend things nearby as well. And the final way to make the blast is reserved for larger targets. So if you land all three arcane needle charges in a row on the same target, they will make the suspending blast. And if they aren't a boss, then they themselves will also get suspended in that blast. So this last way makes a larger suspending radius, so it's more bang for your buck, but the trade-off is that it requires all three charges on a single target. So we really want to have a lot of uptime on our arcane needles, so I stacked several different ways of generating melee energy into this build. The first way we already mentioned is by defeating suspended targets, but we're also going to have Pugilist on a strand primary weapon. So I'm running with the Rufus's Fury with enhanced Pugilist and Paracausal Affinity since we're getting lots and lots of strand kills. I really wanted to love the new raid SMG Imminence since it's also strand. It's got Pugilist, but that SMG is unfortunately just so bad. And Rufus has a bigger mag, it's got more range, more versatility, etc. I'm also going to put 2 outreach mods on my bond. That way I'm getting melee energy every time I use my class ability. I've got invigoration on my boots, so I can get melee energy every time I pick up an orb of power. And of course I'm using a strand siphon helmet mod to make lots of orbs. Side note, I'm also using a hands-on mod on my helmet. Since we're going to be getting a lot of melee final blows, may as well get some super energy for it. So between all those melee energy sources, basically everything we do is going to feed us melee energy. But there's more ways of generating energy baked into the prismatic build as well, so let's cover the whole prismatic setup next. So just moving down the line here, I'm using Needle Storm as my super, but you can totally use the Nova Bomb here as well, honestly. I'm rocking Phoenix Dive because I like the shorter cooldown as well as the mobile healing it provides, as opposed to just standing in a rift and doing a long animation. I use Burst Glide, obviously Arcane Needle, and I'm rocking a healing grenade here just for the 2 uses. 1, it can heal me quickly in a pinch if I need it. 2, it has a lot of uptime, which helps because we're going to be using Bleak Watcher. When we consume the grenade, we can then deploy a Bleak Watcher turret, which is going to help lock down the room and keep enemies off our backs. This is especially useful in the Verity encounter of the raid, when you need to manage a room full of ads completely by yourself while swapping shapes around. I'm also using Devour because we're going to be getting a lot of ability kills, and I mean a lot of ability kills. Between the Arcane Needles and the Tangle Detonations, you only need 1 ability kill to get the Devour chain rolling, and then any kill beyond that is just going to top off your health and refresh the Devour counter. So with Devour up, we're also going to be cooling down our grenades extremely fast, so we can have more turrets on the field, or healing, like I said, in a pinch. Moving on to the fragments, I played around with lots and lots of different combinations here, and these are the ones that I landed on ultimately. We've got Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets afflicted with a stasis or strand debuff grants bonus light transcendence energy, and we also get plus 10 to strength. And of course, we've got a lot of stasis and strand debuffs on the field between the Bleak Watcher turret, the severing detonations, the suspending detonations. There's a lot going on there. Next up, Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability recharges more quickly. So we're going for nearly 100% uptime to Devour, which is an elemental buff. So that means we're going to be getting that Phoenix Dive back more quickly with Facet of Hope, and more Phoenix Dives means more melee energy due to the outreach mods on our bond. Next up, Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants us Woven Mail since we have Needle Storm on, or it could give you Overshields if you're rocking a Nova Bomb instead. Next up, Facet of Solitude. This one's really interesting. So landing precision hits emits a severing blast from the target. While Transcendent, this blast is much bigger. This is going to help us in 3 ways. First, it's going to reduce the damage output of every enemy caught in the severing blast. That helps keep us alive. Second, it means these enemies now have an elemental debuff on them, which is going to feed Facet of Devotion. And third, severed enemies leave a tangle behind when they die. This does work in PvP, by the way. Like, you should absolutely be using this in PvP because you're basically going to get tangles just for winning your primary duel. It's that simple. And finally, we've got Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. And would you look at that, I happen to have a Volt Shot and Indebted Kindness equipped, so I can kill a lot of things really fast with light energy and feed my melees. Also, Rapid Darkness Final Blows grant grenade energy, and we're getting a lot of strand kills with the Tangles and the Rufus, so our grenade uptime is even better too. So you can see here how everything feeds everything else. Every single ability is getting recharged faster than normal by at least 1 or more sources. The melee gets charged with all weapon kills, all suspended kills, Phoenix Dives, and more. The grenade is getting energy from Rufus kills, Tangle kills, Devour. The class ability is getting energy because almost all of our kills are on targets that are debuffed with Strand or Stasis or both. It's just constant uptime. You have what you need when you need it. It's that simple. The next thing I need to cover is the rest of the weapons that we've got equipped. So like I said, Rufus's Fury is our primary weapon here. But we're also using Indebted Kindness with Volt Shot to help add clear, and Rocket Sidearms do respectable damage to Majors as well. And in my heavy slot, I've actually been using the Queenbreaker's bow a lot since it got buffed, but you could also use the new Strand Linear Fusion called Scintillation, which is in the Nightfall this week. Mine has auto-loading holster and bait and switch. So it's great for tormentors and bosses. I should also note the most important artifact mods as well. We've got Elemental Siphon, so we're making tangles just because we're getting Rufus kills. We've got Threaded Blast. Destroying a tangle with a strand weapon creates a larger and more damaging explosion. That's huge for what we're doing here. And finally, there's Shield Crush. While you have Woven Mail, which we have a lot, or Void Overshields, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. That's handy because we're getting Woven Mail when we pick up an Orb of Power. Now we're getting more melee charges and our melee attack is doing more damage. And that takes me to the final topic of champions. We've got all champions covered with this build. With Mataiodoxia, just one Arcane Needle will stun a barrier champion. I've got Unstoppable Sidearm on, so Indebted Kindness has us covered there. And Jolting stuns overloads, so I can just kill an ad, reload the Indebted Kindness, and then the next shot I have on an overload champion is going to stun him. Or if I shoot something near him, he's going to get stunned. Boom. Everything is covered. Whew, that was a lot to unpack. It's a fairly complex build in terms of setup, admittedly, but once you've put everything in the right place, you can do some extraordinary things in casual and endgame PvE content with this build. Heck, you can do some silly things in PvP with it too. It's not an optimal PvP build, not gonna lie to you, but it definitely does have its utility, and you can do some pretty funny suspending detonation things with it, so it's serviceable there. And if you're a resilience purist, I know there's a million of you in PvE, yeah, feel free to run more than 7 resilience like I do, but I just don't find survivability to be an issue personally with this build between Woven Mail and Devour. But anyway, that's the build. You can do that if you want. That's the build! I hope you enjoyed the breakdown, and please let me know in the comments if you get around to using this build, what you thought of it. Thanks as always for tuning into the video today. Feel free to leave a like on it only if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing for even more Destiny 2 content. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you out there in the Sol system.
Zone B lost. Enemy has advantage. That shut them down. Double down.